Hello and welcome to Sugar and Silk and Stretch. This is a unique boxing podcast brought to you exclusively by Acepodcastnation. Accordingly, my name is Ben Doughty.
My name is Michael Silk Olajide.
And I'm a very hot Gary Stretch.
You've always been hot, Gary. That's
I'm not at home, so I'm in a place in Bulgaria. It's hot with no AC.
I see. Well,
that kind of hard. Okay.
Good to have you back, Gary. And in any case, you were sadly missed by a lot of people. People said that we're not really the same without you. It seemed to be like nothing ever seemed to happen with this show till you came along. I don't know what it is, that extra charisma factor, the jigsaw piece we're missing.
Flattery will get you everywhere, Ben.
Guys,
it's gotten everywhere already. I mean, look at him. He's living the highlight.
I would just, you know what?
I'm coming for Usyk.
I would like to explain that I've got the shades on for this show because I thought I needed a degree of disguise and subterfuge to hide my shame at having talked up Joyce's chances so optimistically that he might even be able to avenge a loss last night. Michael said it would be the same, only worse. Gary didn't join us last week, so I didn't make a prediction. And I figured I just ought to lie a little bit low because, you know what, I didn't actually say confidently Joyce will win the fight, but I did.
Oh, I don't know about that.
At one point, you tried to pin me down, and I said, "Nah, you know what? Zhang wins again if you really want to get me in a corner." But I just said he'll do. I said he'll do way better than last time, and blah blah blah. And look what happened. He got blown away. He didn't have a clue how to deal with it. And go on.
And I'm not happy about that either. I'm not taking any pride in that because to see a fighter get hurt and knocked out and the whole thing that goes with it, I understand all sides of it. I'm not smiling for that reason. Just if we were to detach ourselves from the physicality of it, it's nice to be able to have the opportunity to say, and Gary, I'm sure you can relate to this as well, I told you so.
Yeah.
It's one of the most beautiful
I knew this day would come.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, do you know what? I'll tell you what, fellas.
Plaudits to you. I actually said to Ben, but it's unofficial. We was talking privately, and I said, I think I had a gut feel. I said that Zhang would get him out early, and Ben will attest. But then I said, but possibly if it can continue, everyone knew the longer the fight went, it was more going to suit Joyce, based on, you know, the Chinaman's not got the best gas tank, or that, so they say. But I cannot take credit for that one because I was on the fence. But let's get into a couple of things, Ben. The one thing which was shocking for me, first of all, I don't think you can teach an old dog new tricks. Not the kind of fighter that Joyce is. But what was shocking to me is that you don't put on 2 stone or whatever amount of weight and then try and do a boxing match. If he was going to box the way he was boxing, moving and slipping and sliding, he should have been lighter, not heavier.
But I never thought that's what he needed to do, Gary. As soon as I saw him
you said to me, he's got to bully him, sit on him, and get up close. Yeah, and you know, if you get really up close, there's no southpaw, there's no orthodox because you're in a phone booth. You know what I mean? So
absolutely true. And you can't bully a guy like Zhang. You have to be
I mean, but to put on that kind of weight, and then I would be heartbroken if it was me because I feel like, you know, you listen to everybody. Obviously, he's the guy who makes the decisions, but you listen to everybody. I would feel like I would have rather put some weight on, gone at him like a truck. You know, you don't get an 18-wheeler to do obstacle courses. You know what I mean?
No.
And he was trying to do this very clever boxing. It didn't work. He should have gone all out, you know, and he got knocked out. But at least he would have tried. Last night he didn't even get in the game. He wasn't in the game. Yeah. He avoided punches until he got knocked out, and that was and each round. Zhang just kept getting more confident. He almost has his hands by his sides in the 3rd round, like wasn't afraid of Joyce at all.
Yeah.
So, do you know, Gary, as soon as I saw Joyce come out the way he did, trying to stay long with a little bit of a funny hand position, a bit of a low lead hand, moving to his left like someone who'd been like his first spar and he's told to keep his foot on the outside, trying to block that straight left with this hand. As soon as I saw him all tentative and trying to do this, thinking I was told to move my head, so I'm going to do a bit of this. I thought, I know he's going to get beat, and he's going to get beat maybe quicker than last time because, like you said, It might not have worked, and Michael says you don't bully a guy like Zhang, but that's what he needed to try and do. Very good point about there's no southpaw and orthodox so much when you're up close. His best chance is in the pocket.
The biggest thing in the fight game, we all know, is the mental thing. You impose your will. You do all the things. You work out a strategy, and then it's a matter of whose game plan works, whose doesn't. But at the end of the day, you've got to make, get first thing you need to do is get respect so that people don't walk through you. The second thing you got to do is start to impose your will and do what you want to do. And last night, Joyce didn't do a thing that he, in my opinion, wanted to do.
He didn't know what to do. I really didn't know what to do. I feel he.
And what's sad, Michael, is the first fight he got cut and he got stopped. He got his eye closed. But let's say it didn't close. He had a very good opportunity going late. He was getting better and better and better.
Yeah.
So why would you change the game plan? All you got to do is not get hit as much. But doesn't mean you have to box. It means you move your head. But it's still that he should have had the similar style.
And
he may have. If he'd have fought the way he fought the first time was better than this way, because he was doing a lot better the first time. And as the fight was going on, it was a ticking clock because of the eye. But without the eye, everybody knows he had a chance of winning.
The thing is, Gary, it was Zhang dictated the fight from the opening bell, how it went. He was even more confident than he was in the first one. He knew that nothing was a fluke. He knew it wasn't just because of the eye. He knew that I punched him in the eye, and that's why his eye swelled. His eye didn't just swell like surreptitiously or out of nowhere for no reason at all. It swelled closed because he kept hitting it. And so he's like, I know this guy could be hurt, and when I hit him on the chin, it's going to be even worse. And forget about the eye. And that's just
what's very interesting. I'm sorry, Mike, to cut you off.
Go ahead. Finish.
What is interesting is it's almost like common sense. So the left hand, the first fight was the money shot for Zhang, right? So he moves away from the left hand, and Zhang knocks him out with the right hook. You can bet the Chinese camp said he's going to move away from your left hand, so we're going to hit him with the right hook, and that's exactly what he did. It's like crossing the dots, dotting the I's, crossing the T's. If he's not going to go towards the left hand, he's going to go towards the right hook. And
this is the problem, Gary. Whenever they say that, right? Whenever they say you move to your left against a southpaw or move to your right against an orthodox, you don't want to get hit with either of the hands, do you? Because you don't know how hard they hit with each shot. Sometimes you don't.
No.
It's just also predictable. And they opened the Acme book for fighting southpaws, and you fight a guy dependent on what he's good at doing. Like if you want to, whether he's orthodox, whether he's southpaw, and as you said, Gary, when you're on the inside, either hand, it doesn't matter. They're both coming at you, but it's the same thing at the distance too. Really, it's just that you just have to understand a man's timing, a man's punches. The trajectory they're coming at you is a little bit different with power behind them, but ultimately your goal is not to get hit by it anyway. So it doesn't make sense that you can't effectively defend against that. Like here's my biggest issue with this. When you start fighting or you take two people that have never fought before, you punch at the dude's face and they'll at least close their eyes or blink or something. They'll flinch. You flinch. Now that's a primitive defensive reaction to the punch. It's knowledge. You know a punch is coming, you close your eyes. You don't know whether to block it or slip it. You don't know that stuff. But you close your eyes and just kind of like you react. Those reactions, as you get better as a boxer, turn into a honed instinct. Lean away, get under, ride the punch, whatever it is. He didn't even blink when those punches came at him and hit him in the face. He didn't close his eyes in anticipation for the punch. That means there's something like there's a reflex that isn't working. There's a synapse in his brain that isn't connecting and isn't telling him those punches are dangerous.
Was it?
You know what's funny? Chisora had a great lot of success with Usyk, and the only reason was because he just jumped on him and didn't allow Usyk to do much. He closed the gap, and he was bullying him and grabbing him and pushing him and shoving him. That's the fight Joyce had to have last night. You cannot put on 6 on and have a boxing match and dance around
I see what you're saying. Like, you
Juggernaut.
couldn't get into a boxing match with him. But I see exactly what you're saying, because Zhang is like, that's what he does. He's all about. I mean, it's like fencing with your fists, right? That's what he does. But it's not like the other kid knows how to do anything else to get him off that track.
No, and go on.
No, I think though, you know, I'll probably get some stick for this. I think though, I don't think everyone's looking at Zhang like is this new big thing. I don't think he is at all. I think Joyce just had the first fight was typical Joyce. He took a lot of shots, but he took them. His eye closed. I think if the fight would have gone on without the eye in the first fight, Joyce had a very good chance of coming on late, and everyone knows that Zhang gasses, so it could have worked. So I wouldn't have changed that much, maybe gained a little weight, but then still gone at him and done his thing. But I think the fact that he allowed Zhang to have time and distance, and he was very fearful, and he's 2 stone heavy trying to dance on his feet, I just think he got it wrong. But I do not think that Zhang is this world beater now. Who I think he's a good fighter.
People talk about him fighting Fury and saying Fury will die.
Tyson Fury will play with him.
I don't know about that.
Nope.
First of all, I don't think you can say that just because. Well, yeah, okay.
I think he's much better fighter at every level.
I think yes, he's a problem for Fury. Absolutely.
I don't think so.
For Fury.
I don't think he's
he has very intelligent fists, very good hands. That's a problem.
That's a good one for me and you, Michael, when it happens.
Let's do it.
Well, I need to get on the scoreboard because
him
unfortunately, since we've started counting, let's just break it down for the ladies and gentlemen who watch this show. Michael is 1-1 in predictions since we started watching and counting. Gary is 1-0 because he didn't take part in the other prediction for Zhang. And
does that mean I'm 100%, Ben?
Does
that mean I'm 100%, Ben? Just
you're undefeated. Michael is a 50-50 record, and I haven't won. What's the opposite of undefeated? What is the term? Just off
loser.
Yeah, loser. So
you have potential, Ben. You have potential.
Yeah. I would like to point out, and I hope Michael backs me up here, that I predicted various fights right before you arrived and before it was Sugar, Silver, and Stretch, but we weren't counting then. Since you came and we got this competitive edge, now we're counting, and I'm losing quite badly.
Can you recall those fights? Because I don't recall them.
Yeah, see, there you go. You sold me down the river, Silk. There you go. Well, I won't forget this. Guys, was it a crazy? Because I've got to tell you, I thought that Joyce's team, in their entirety, the trainer, the coach, you know, the management and everyone else, I thought they were smarter than that, and I thought they had more of an idea about what they were doing in there. Was it a crazy managerial decision to put him back in there with a guy?
I'll tell you what it was. There's a change of game plan, which we all knew he had to do, but it doesn't mean a change of fighter. He's called the Juggernaut because he's an 18-wheeler wagon, right? You can't turn an 18-wheeler wagon into a Ferrari that's in and out.
Yeah.
They needed to change the tactic, meaning he's still a Juggernaut, but he's just got to move his head more. He's not got to dance around and do all this new stuff. He's just got to be a little more aware of not. I think the first fight he thought he was unhurtable, and he woke up. So you change the tactic, but don't change the fighter. And what they tried to do yesterday was turn a complete Juggernaut into a very fast sport, and it didn't work. So that Ben is where they made him. It's too late in the game. He's almost 40 years of age. You're not going to change the way he fights. But you can change his tactic in the way he fights. They tried to completely change it into a different kind of fighter, and they come unstuck.
I don't think you can help him. His reflex is an extremely important part of boxing. So on his way up, he's going to fight certain fighters that are going to fit into his mode of fighting, and I understand that. That kind of like that make him look good. Once you get up into the upper echelon, you no longer have a choice of who you fight, right?
Well, you do though, don't you? Today you do. Fury ain't fighting anybody.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure you do, but when you do fight, with the exception of Fury and
you mean your era?
Come on, guys. Fury's fought the best in the game. He fought the most dangerous man on the planet. He beat Klitschko, and now who's going to? And then he tried to make a few fights, I believe. People say he didn't try to make the Usyk fight. I believe he wanted to make the Usyk fight in the way in which he wanted to make it financially. So it's not that he didn't want to fight him, but he knows his value. Now he's gone away because he was kind of nothing really got put together, and he's going away now. He's going to have a little bit of fun, a big event, 50+ million he's going to earn, and then he'll get back to boxing. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, to be honest.
That's not the noises he's making. I realise you have to be wary of the things that come out of his mouth and you can disregard them. But he's not saying that. He said, I've got other goals now. I've completed boxing. There's nothing else to prove. I want to be on the Forbes. I want to top the Forbes list. I want to be a Hollywood movie star like
But
you,
he said
Gary.
he's going to retire. I mean, we don't listen to what... I don't listen to what people say. I listen to what they do. And the bottom line is, he said he was going to go and beat Klitschko. He beat him. He said he was going to beat Wilder. He beat Wilder on the most prolific comeback. Like how he did it the first time, you know, I'll never know, coming from where he came from. And then his momentum started, and then he really destroyed Wilder in the second two. So, and that was the guy nobody wanted to fight. That was the ghost. Nobody wanted Wilder, but Fury took it in his own backyard.
Well, people were fighting Wilder.
I don't think we can
Wilder
question
had a whole
Fury.
bunch of title defenses.
Yeah, no, Wilder had fights. People would
Wilder
fight.
had loads of title defenses.
Would fight him too.
Yeah, but Wilder. What I'm saying was Wilder was the danger in the division, and Fury took on the number.
But he wasn't avoided though. He wasn't
Yeah, he
avoided.
was certainly not avoided.
No.
I don't think Fury's. I think he wouldn't avoid anybody, but I think he's a smart guy. And I don't think Michael knows this more than anybody. This is a business. So many, you know, you can't eat your belts, and you know, this is a business. Who's going to stop a man making a good living, taking a sidestep? What he says is controversial, but what he's actually done. This is the first time he's gone a little left to doing a big event with an MMA guy. He wants to do a movie. He wants to do that. It's okay, but other than that, everything he said is done. So I believe he'll get straight back into the boxing next, and he'll fight whoever if the deal's right.
Guys, we've already had this conversation.
I was going to say, it was like deja vu all over again.
Getting back to Joe Joyce, where does he go from here? How bleak is the prognostication at this point? Michael first.
Where does Joe Joyce go from here? Well, I think he has to, if he's going to continue to fight, and I think he will, he has to absolutely deconstruct what he's been doing, who's working with, whoever's training him does not have the ability to turn him into a champion. They cannot develop him. They have shown no ability to be able to turn him into anything that's going to be, a real threat in the heavyweight division. He's going to turn, I think, the aura of invincibility has been dropped completely now. And other guys are going to be, just opening up on him and knowing that eventually you open up. I can see other young heavyweights coming up like Big Baby and all that kind of stuff. That's who you're going to get next. You're going to have guys like that unloading on you.
Is there some domestic fights out there, Gary, for him that still be compelling and worthwhile?
I think there is. I hope that he doesn't become the guy that is the stepping stone for the young man next. I hope that doesn't happen. I think the problem he has is realistically the way the heavyweights are stacked right now. For Joe Joyce to get a world title fight, we're talking at least, even if he does everything right now, it's 2 years. He's almost 40. He's got the 2 defeats he's got to fix. The time is ticking away. At best, it may be 2-3 years before he gets a title fight. He's going on for 43. So time's against him. I think there's one more payday.
He's 38. He's 38 now.
Hey, listen, don't argue a man's math, Ben. Ben, don't argue another man.
I'm sorry. I thought he was 39. Okay, but he's certainly not a spring chicken. No. I think there's one more big fight for him. I think he could, if he takes his time now, I think he could fight a big fight with one of the top guys rather than go back to domestic level. I think he hasn't damaged his credibility that much. No one thinks he's going to be a world champion, but he could take a risk. I don't think it's a risk anymore, and fight a Wilder or fight one of the other heavyweights.
Dylan White.
That would be a payday. Would be the best thing he could do, I think, and call it a day.
But what's he doing it for? Is he doing it to win a title, or is he doing it for money? If he's doing it for money, take a money fight. I understand that. But he's damaged goods right now. Whether how much of a dollar he's going to bring to it, because I mean that his last those two losses were just so complete, utterly complete beatdowns. Really, he
Well,
lost.
let's be honest. If he knows now, I mean, let's look at. We're all in his position, right? We have a small window on the fight game to make money. So let's say he may not admit it to himself. He may admit it to himself. He's going to have these conversations alone. But if he realistically thinks I'm not going to get a title, he should try and get one more payday and then secure his future. I'm sure he made a lot of money, but not the money forever.
Yeah,
Zhang,
but how does he get a money fight coming off of the Zhang fight, which wasn't even a world title fight? How can he get a big money fight? It's impossible unless he were to fight some.
I think he's got to fight one of the top guys.
Do you know what, Michael? There's big fights, probably relatively big fights with the likes of Anthony Joshua or maybe Dylan White, to be clear. Dylan White's gone super quiet, by the way, since he failed the drug test.
I think Dylan White, I mean, if you got to fight with Anthony Joshua, okay. If you got to fight with, fighters who he isn't going to be able to fight or won't be interested in fighting him, or maybe they will just because it would be perceived, they would think it's an easy fight. He doesn't have the
leverage.
He doesn't have the leverage, and he doesn't have the tools that you would think, not even a puncher's chance. He couldn't even get off. Last night he was so slow. I couldn't
Let's remember he did beat a bunch of world-class heavyweights. Some of them might have been slightly past noon, but he did look impressive. He did do a number on Daniel Dubois. He did do an impressive number on Joseph Parker. Obviously, Zhang clearly appears to be his kryptonite, and we're not talking about Superman in the first place.
And sometimes, Ben, you meet that guy you just can't beat. So maybe that's the guy. Maybe we're being unfair on Joyce.
Well, I haven't seen the Dubois fight, so I need to see that.
I thought that was quite close, though, the Dubois fight.
It was close, but it ended conclusively, didn't it?
It did. Well, it was an eye injury, wasn't it? Like the same thing as
Billy Joe.
So I don't think that's a bad loss. I don't think it's a great win if someone's damaged. He didn't knock him out.
But it was seen. I hear what you're saying on the positivity point of view, but in the negative sense, Dubois was labelled a quitter in some quarters because of that, wasn't he? Ironically, Billy Joe Saunders labelled him a quitter of sorts and said, "You should be carried out that ring, brother. You should never quit on on the deck or on your stool." Which obviously there was perhaps a little bit of a karmic reprisal involved when Billy Joe found himself in the same kind of situation against Canelo Alvarez. But Joyce, to me, Joyce looked very limited from the off. But the thing is, he kept winning all the time, and in the end, I had to reevaluate him a little bit and acknowledge that he's one of them fighters who was a little bit better than he looked to me visually. But
if you really break it down, on every real test, he's really not. I really rate Joseph Parker. It's funny. I think he's one of the better fighters who's not. He did win a world title, but I think I really rate Parker. I think he's an all-around really good fighter.
Well, I don't know if I like any heavyweights. This is the first time in my life.
I like the kid who was on the undercard. Did you? That young kid, 18.
I didn't see him.
Itama. Moses Itama, the one who.
Amazing.
Listen,
Amazing.
Michael. There's this kid coming up, right, called Moses Itama. He's only 18. He won, I believe, the World Youth Championships, like the World Juniors or something like that.
And he's a heavyweight.
And the big thing, he's a heavyweight. The big thing right now is a southpaw. They're giving him this kind of marketing on British TV. They're saying he wants to become the youngest world heavyweight champion in history. So he wants to displace Mike Tyson in that regard. Obviously, that brings controversy and pressure on him straight away. And some people are saying he's not all that. But Gary likes the look of him. Do you know what? Gary, I want to tell you something. Eastern Pickering, former British Commonwealth and European champion, messaged me, got a voicemail on Facebook yesterday. And he said, "Shug, can you do a thread about Itama? I better do this soon." He said, "I think they need to tidy him up a bit. He looks homeless, and the way he talks." He said he thinks he looks too much of a mess. He said he looks homeless, and the way he talks, he's not even looking at the camera. He thinks they need to seriously change the kid's presentation. Do you have any thoughts on that, Gary?
I thought he looked great. I thought he spoke well. He was certainly. I think he's the fastest heavyweight I've seen for a long time.
Yeah,
he bangs. He's young. He's fearless. I think if he's guided correctly, don't rush him too quick to get this silly youngest ever. But I think he's got 2 years to do it if he wants to beat it. But he's certainly a good prospect.
What's his record?
I don't know offhand. Simon Willis can probably tell us. Simon, I believe, is in the background coordinating it.
4 or 5-0, something like that.
He's very just starting out, Michael. But they're giving him the big
very
push over here.
You'd have liked him, Michael. He's impressive. You can just
He had a punch bag in front of him, though, right? He had a sitting duck in front of him last night. But that's the way it goes, huh?
Yeah.
People struggle with sitting ducks sometimes. It's, a sitting duck's no problem as long as you make him look like a sitting duck, and he made him look like a sitting duck. So,
well, that's true, because sometimes you get a guy when you know someone's well beneath you. I'm only relying on my little bit of experience here. Sometimes you can struggle a bit with someone who is perceived to be that far beneath you that you end up having, making hard work of it. For whatever reason, it's the dynamic. Talking of that. Did who saw Conor Benn last night? Did you both catch that?
I didn't see it.
I thought, Gary, it was a decent enough workout. I thought he looked pretty sharp. I thought he looked good. Putting the whole scandal of whether he should be fighting or not and the drug test to one side, I thought it was a decent 10-round workout that had done him a lot of good against a really tough, big game opponent who came to fight. What's your thoughts?
I thought it was a brilliant performance. Not even good, brilliant. I'll tell you for why. He never got touched much at all. He showed great defense. He showed fantastic movement. And what he did show was also really good intellect. He went 10 rounds and he looked as sharp in the 10th as he did in the first. He showed that he can adjust. He hit the guy with some amazing shots. The guy's never been stopped in 38 fights or something like that. And the kid could fight, and I just think I thought I saw a very mature for Conor's experience, a very mature performance. He did everything right. He was on every step of the fight. He adjusted when he knew he was not going to get the guy out. He then changed the plan a little, but still kept trying to get him out, but didn't over try. But what I was amazed at was he had incredible defense.
Okay, is that Moses Aitama's record just appeared on the screen?
Yeah, that is.
Okay,
5-0.
cool. How many? 5-0, perfect. So Gary's cool there. Okay, let's lose that and get back to Gary's godlike visage. Perfect. Yeah. So, we're buttering him up because he's been away for a couple of weeks and we don't want him, we don't want it to happen again. So go on, Gary, keep going.
No, so we all know we can bang. We all know what he showed for me was he's much more versatile than people give him credit for. And you've got to remember, almost 2 years out the ring, he had the most ridiculous amount of pressure. It's not like a normal 2 years out. We had a traumatic 2 years out. Then he had the pressure. Then he had the pressure of all of the stuff that happened to him, which, for his head is not great. Long layoffs, we know for a fact. His timing was great, but what was really great was his ringmanship and his defense. He was a complete fighter, and I thought he was brilliant performance.
Do you think that happens because, listen, when it's a fight you're supposed to win. They're giving you a fight you're supposed to win, so you're going there without any hesitation. You're going in there with copious amounts of confidence. How much of it is that, and how much of it is he really did have this crazy ability that you're talking about? Like I said, I didn't see the fight at all. I don't know. I've seen maybe
the kid he fought has got a very good record, and everyone said, and it was not an easy fight to come back on. The kid's never been stopped, even if he's supposed to win or whatever. He got into a really decent fight, but competitive fight, and so
that means the kid was hitting him as well.
Everybody says it's supposed to go a certain way, but let's say it doesn't. He then adjusted, and he was brilliant. He just did everything right, and I just thought it was great.
What were the things of brilliance? That's what I want to say. You were saying what things was he doing that was brilliant? Beautiful
movement, beautiful. He would nail the guy. The guy would hit him. He'd be underneath, turn him on the. I mean, real ring craftsmanship.
Generalship, yeah. He did look
good. He really did. When you see it, Michael, I think you'll be very impressed.
It was a pretty complete performance, and the other guy. You never know with these Mexicans sometimes, whether they're relatively obscure. They've had 32 wins, 3 losses, and a couple of draws. You don't know how good they are, but the guy was tough as a $2 steak.
And the guy had about 28 knockouts, Ben, as well. He was a
I
banger.
didn't see the KO percentage, but yeah, you know, and the guy looked massive as well. The guy looked like he was about 160 by the time he got in the ring. You know, so
and he moved up a weight. So I mean, every single thing against him, he moved up a weight. He's 2 years out. All of the trauma.
Well, not quite 2 years. He last boxed in April last year.
18
so
months.
About 14 months. So about 16 months.
Okay, I'll give you 16 months.
All right.
Okay, but it's a long time. It's a long time out, Ben.
Yeah.
If you'd had 16 months without seeing the wife, it's a long time, Ben.
It was, you know, and some people inevitably, Gary, were jumping on it, even when they'd heard he'd gone the distance and then perhaps hadn't even seen it. They were saying, oh, he hasn't got the power now, he's not on the eggs anymore, you know, no peds equals no power. That, I think, is a very wooden narrative.
Some great shots. He hit the kid with some great shots. That would have took a lot. I tell you how much his opponent was that much not very good that Barry Hearn signed him last night.
So let me ask you.
What, Barry Hearn or Eddie Hearn?
Eddie Hearn signed him last night.
What, he signed a Mexican?
Yes.
Are you sure about that?
Yes, I read about it today.
So go on, Simon, run a little check on that for me. Did Barry Hearn sign a Roscoe? Sorry, Eddie Hearn. Did he sign a Roscoe last night? Because it's interesting if he did. Because what would he want to do? That guy, it was ranked number 205 on the BoxRec computer. You know, the BoxRec rankings out of about 12 or 1,300 welterweights.
I read today that he signed him, and one of the comments he said is, with the right people and the right management, this kid is going to go a long way.
That's very interesting if it's the case. Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, he looked a good opponent to me, and I'm not. Listen, it's difficult for me to post anything about Conor Benn on my Facebook page without inviting a storm of comments about the stigma that is now attached to his name. Some of them are intelligent, you know, in their objections, and some of them are just knee-jerking and saying scumbag, drug cheat, whatever. I do admit that he's got it worse, and other fighters who've tested positive in the past, we could reel off a bunch of names. Conor really seems to be personal with him, whether he's a drug cheat or not. But looking at it dispassionately as a boxing performance, I thought when you see a kid who's been out the ring for whatever reason for nearly 18 months, I thought it was exactly what the doctor ordered for him. And he did look good. What's interesting is he didn't look that great. I don't know if you watched him when he first turned pro, like really early years, when he didn't look as naturally talented as he clearly is, because
in leaps and bounds, and that's what, like you say, Ben. He's a young, he's a young professional, really. But I mean, I read behavior as most people. If Conor Benn took, peds, then he's a sociopath. I really genuinely believe this kid. I believe things can happen, mistakes. I don't think he can intentionally. I think he's been absolute. Things happen. Who knows? We'll get to the bottom of it. Hopefully one day it will come out. But I believe that this kid is a genuine kid. I mean, and the amount of abuse and the amount of, and I don't even know if it was a, minute amount that can affect anything, or who knows what it is. But
the problem is, Gary,
when he talks about it, it's so genuine. He is.
What do you know? What do you know about clone morphine? The only reason I asked that is because I didn't know anything about it. I'd never heard of it until he tested positive for it. What people who know more about the whole area of
I know a little bit.
What everybody tells me, people who know more than I do about that subject in general of performance-enhancing drugs, they tell me the chances of ingesting it accidentally twice in 2 different tests in a certain time period is very, very unlikely. And they say it's one of those drugs you use when you take a cycle of steroids. You do it to balance out your natural testosterone production. And people said that it just wouldn't show up for any other reason. That's what some people insist. But that's the problem I have with it.
I don't know if that's the case. That's the case. But maybe this is why. I mean, Simon Jordan. I'm not sure, other people. I can't remember exactly who. But there's got to be a team held responsible. He's not. I don't believe anyone's doing it on their own. And if he's not, and if he has a strength and conditioning coach, and these guys are on, they're like the fighters. They're trying to become the best strength and conditioning coach, get the best results. Who knows if someone's giving something that he doesn't know he's had, or I just genuinely believe it's not. It doesn't seem to me like it's in his DNA to cheat. I think he's a good kid, and I think he's a strong mind. I love his attitude all the time, and that's what makes me believe in him. Is him, not the particular boxing.
You know what I feel.
I've had fights past. I've had fights in the past, and maybe I fought a guy who may be better than me, but I know I'll beat him. Why? Because of this. And I think Conor's got this. And I think there'll be times in his career when he might fight a better fighter, but he'll still beat him. And that's what I like about him. He has a quality, strength of mind. Yeah. And I don't think that kind of strength of mind is the guy who cheats. That's just me.
You know what? I think, I wouldn't say anybody, but a great deal of people are capable of cheating. I know nothing about Conor Benn's case, any of that kind of stuff. So I'm only going to go on what the science says, right? And the science said that he cheated. Only the science, it's not my feelings. It's, you know what I mean?
Well, the science didn't say he cheated. The science said he had a substance in him, but we don't know how it got in him. It doesn't say
that would be.
Let's get it accurate. The science doesn't say anyone cheats. It just says there's something in your system. Now, you may have...
It says something that you could cheat with is in your system, and that means you have to eat it. That means you have to take it, and that means if you have to take it, it's not just like a one-time thing. It's like it's a consistent usage.
What if you go out to a party with all your mates, and everyone's drinking, and you're driving, and your best mate at school, it's his birthday, and he says, have a drink. You say, no, and they put a little bit in your drink, and you don't... It's in your system. You took it. Things happen.
I don't think it's illegal. I don't think it's illegal to train on whiskey or rye or...
No, but if you get it is illegal if you get a DUI. If someone pulls you up, you just a breathalyzer.
Yeah, but we're talking about...
I think this is probably more akin to getting pregnant in a jacuzzi because you shared a jacuzzi with someone who might have pleasured themselves. I think it's a bit more... It's as unlikely as that, I think.
Let me ask you a question. Is it
I'm never going in another one.
Is it impossible for a strength and conditioning coach or someone who wants the best results with his work? Is it impossible that he gives him drinks or whatever, mixes the things and all the vitamin A, B, C?
I think it's impossible. You know why I think it's impossible, Gary? It's impossible because at that point, Conor would be saying something to his strength and conditioning coach. He'd be fired. He'd be out of there.
But the conditioning coach is never
put that in his drink unbeknownst to Conor.
But no one's going to admit to it at this point. So, but you can't. I just believe the kid's innocent. I do. I think something's happened. I don't know how it got in. Hopefully, we'll find out. I'll be wrong. I'll hold my hands up. I don't believe. I just don't see it in this kid. I think he's.
How do you see it proceeding, Gary? Because the situation at the minute, he's boxed last night in Florida. He's cleared the ABC, which is the American or the Association of Boxing Commissions. They said they asked the board, was he cleared before they okayed him for a license in Florida and Texas. He also has one. And they said he was cleared because it was the National Anti-Doping Panel that cleared him. But as you probably know, the British Boxing Board of Control and UKAD have both appealed that decision because they're not happy with it. They don't think they've got closure. They don't think they've had an explanation. What happens next? I mean, all right, he looked good last night. You know, he's up, but he's got over that. The nightmare.
He's allowed to fight in the US. He's allowed to fight in the rest of the world. He has a license to do so. He has an issue with England, but there's also something that no one's talking about. In the early stages when this all happened with the British Boxing Board of Control, I don't know the details, but Conor said he had issues with his father. He had issues, and there's always been something with the Benns. So he took a position, a very defensive position, which he maybe have regretted. It was like, fuck you to the board because of history. So he's had not himself, but his family, his father had history. So I think he thinks they have something in for him. So that complicates things.
Which I don't think they did because I think Nigel Benn was a huge British boxing hero. Conor Benn has always been a big box office fighter and very much the darling for a while. He was on all the shows with DAZN. He was getting the big. I mean, all right, I don't know how the British Boxing Board of Control felt about him per se, but it might be interesting for Michael to know that Nigel Benn, when he was coming up, he was initially managed by Burt McCarthy and then by Frank Warren for a while, and then he teamed up with a guy that will want to get on the show. His name's Ambrose Mendy. Gary knows him pretty well, I think. He's an absolute maverick. He's a black guy, but he came from the streets, but he had this style and profile. He was kind of like elements of a British Don King, but much less cartoony.
He could be the president, couldn't he? He's like Obama.
Very
almost.
charismatic.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
he's very, very. He has a hypnotic level of charm and eloquence. I would say that much. Now, anyway, they wouldn't give him a license, okay, Michael, to manage Nigel Benn. They said they didn't want him in there. He said it was because this organisation is institutionally racist, and they continually wouldn't license him. Then at one point, after Nigel Benn beat Aaron Barkley in a round in that quite controversial affair in Atlantic City, Nigel Benn got on TV. Must have been Sky TV probably then, could have been ITV, but either way, he was on the TV and he ripped up what appeared to be his British Boxing Board of Control license. He said, if you're not going to accept my manager, and let me bring another black brother through, this is what I think of your license, and tore it all up, yeah?
Yeah.
But you know what it was? Apparently it wasn't his license. When I first mentioned that to Ambrose, one of the first times I ever spoke to him on the phone, Spencer Fearon put me on the phone to him. I know him well today, but he said that was a Weetabix box, actually. And apparently it wasn't the license. And then when the board called him to a disciplinary hearing about, putting the game into disrepute and disrespecting us and tearing up your license on air, they produced the license perfectly intact. And he said that was a moment, I can tell you, because they were confused. They thought they'd watched this get torn to shreds.
Well, so there is history with the board, and I think it's affected. If someone's got a history with anyone's father, if someone has history with my father, I have an issue with them. So I think that comes into this Conor's actions. I think later he thought, you know what, this is my career, it's my life. I have to handle my affairs. I think he regretted, but I think he showed loyalty to his father. There's an issue, and so that did affect the decision. As it stands, he can fight where he wants, but he wants to come home. He wants to address the board. He wants to, and he said he's tried to, and they haven't given him his. Yeah, so I mean, it's all going to work itself out. But I would love him on English soil because he's a great English fighter, and there's some great fights that can fill these arenas. You know what I mean?
Well, Eddie Hearn wants to make the Eubank fight
hard against any of them, right? It's hard for me to come out on either side of it and really state what I feel because I obviously don't know him very well. I've never really seen him fight. I've seen a couple of clips. I think against Chris Algieri. And that's really about the extent of it. But all I'm saying is when you have the evidence and everything points towards the evidence, and then, you of course you can build stories and make excuses around it, but it still remains what it is. It's an excuse and it's a reason. There are many, many fighters that don't have any of this found in their system, right? Look how many fights are around the world and it doesn't happen to them.
Do you know what else is interesting too? Zalani Teti tested positive recently-ish for his last win over Jason Cunningham during that time. He's just had a straight 4-year ban, and his last KO win over Jason Cunningham has been officially changed to a no contest. You know why? As much as anything else, because he's not worth a great deal of money to anybody in the industry.
Look at Canelo.
So he's dispensable.
Look at Canelo. He got like a minor slap on the wrist, right? Because it's
absolutely.
Exactly.
Whereas other fighters get bans because it's easy to ban them because nobody cares. You mentioned Chris Algieri, by the way, Michael. Yeah. Did you guys hear the story, the subtext about DAZN? He worked on DAZN, Algieri, but he was dispensed with last night his services. They didn't let him call the Conor Benn fight because of the history they've got. Obviously, Conor Benn knocked him out, but because Algieri was very vocal about it since the failed violent drug tests, he was told he wouldn't be required for last night's broadcast. What do you think of that?
I thought it was, it was fair. There would be a certain amount of bias towards it, but I'm sure Chris Algieri felt that Conor was probably juicing then too. See, that's the thing. Once you introduce something, you could just like get in the Rolodex and go back through the dates and when did he start? Why did he start? You know what I mean? It just opens up a whole kettle of fish or kettle of worms or
can of worms,
can of worms and a kettle of fish. Yeah, it's a different kettle of fish with the can of worms.
Exactly. That is the proper terminology or use of said axiom phrases. Yeah.
You're blessed.
But in any case, Gary, Eddie Hearn has announced that he wants to make the Ben Eubank Jr. fight, remake it, have it actually happen this time, December 23rd, presumably in London, you'd think, or somewhere else in the UK, one of the other big cities like Liverpool or Manchester. But he wants to make it just before Christmas.
That's great.
You heard my opinion. I love Eubanks, I really do. I think he's great. I think he's a lot better than everybody thinks. You heard I was very vocal, thinking Ben would beat him.
Yes.
Just an opinion. I have slight reservation after last night because only because it's 154.
Yes.
he couldn't put the guy away. I know the guy's super tough, so it's not an average 154 guy. But what's the fight going to be at 60? That's again he's got to go. And I don't know.
I thought you might have recalibrated or maybe second guessed your opinion about him slaughtering him based on that. I think you'd still expect Conor Benn to win.
After seeing it, I don't know if it's a fair change because that guy last night, I think he's a better fighter, and I've never seen a guy take shots like he's took. So he's not your average 54. I think the shots that Ben hit him with would have took most people out. I mean, ask Algeria if he hits, whether he likes him or not. But it did give me a little bit of a concern at 54. Not too much at 54, but I think at 60 is a big ask. And but I still think I still put my money on Ben.
Why? Interesting question. Why do people think a punch is going to hurt less? Like a junior middleweight punching a middleweight. If you're a puncher, you're a puncher. Why?
This reminds me of the exchange we had on Facebook, because Michael is of the opinion that when Michael Spinks went up to fight Larry Holmes and he put on 25 pounds of muscle with the help of the conditioning guru, Mackie Shieldstone, and then he went on to sensationally beat Holmes in 1985 initially for the heavyweight championship of the world. Michael thinks that Spinks could have beat him anyway, but he's just gone it closer to his light heavyweight poundage. He thinks he didn't need to go through that kind of scientific bulking up procedure. I disagree. I don't think weight and size is completely irrelevant in boxing. I get the fact that it's not all there is to it, and there is, sometimes if you're good enough, you're big enough. But I don't think it's utterly irrelevant, the issue of size and physicality, Michael. I just don't. Otherwise,
I think it comes down to your style of fight. Like, of course, if somebody's a physical fighter and they're going to lay a weight on you and move you around and push you around, lay on your back, that kind of groping then having extra weight helps because it's harder for a guy to physically move you. But I don't understand the game of boxing when it comes to the how you score is one person putting his fist at, hitting.
I think maybe, one weight class move, but I think once you start getting in 2 and 3 weight classes, and you're not naturally that big of a size, I think Ben is. I mean, you can bang, but I fought a few guys out of my weight class as in my career, like the Dennis Cronin. These are guys boiling down. They walk around, probably 2 stone heavier than me, and it did affect my performance. I heard them, but guys at my weight, I should get rid of it, no problem at all. But as they get bigger, I felt it was harder to be as effective.
But you always say, Gary, you never lost your natural weight, and you
never lost at 54. No, I got beat with a cut, which, if you watch the fight, is a clash of heads. It should have been a non-contest.
Monville,
yeah, it's a clash of heads. You've watched the fight. So no, I refuse to accept it. It's a non-contest, but and at my weight, no. And I was very comfortable with everybody I ever fought at my weight. So I feel undefeated in years at my weight. But Eubanks put me in some discomfort. The size, Cronin, as much as I well beat him, but he's give me moments of discomfort. The size. I think the kid last night give Ben. Although he's a great performance, he missed him by millimeters, and he was uncomfortable at times, and I think the size
was a factor.
Was a factor, yes, I do.
That's what I need to understand, though. What are the elements or what are the ingredients in size that make it harder for you to beat the individual?
I fight at 54, right? I walk around 65, okay? Uh-huh. 65, maybe even 70 out of season. So when you get a guy who's 60, he walks around 85. Mm-hmm. So, it's when you're fighting at 54 against a natural 185, it's a lot of weight. Like, we've just talked about heavyweights, and everyone said if it doesn't matter, why is everyone saying Joyce came in too light? All the experts got to put more weight on. We're talking heavyweights.
We're talking heavyweights, but when they did that, it's only because Joyce physically put on 25 pounds. That's like weight doesn't matter.
People were saying he should. Why, if it doesn't affect? And these are experts. I mean, I'm not an expert, but why are people saying the weight and the weight? I think there must be some truth I believe there's a truth in weight. That's why they're weight divisions, right?
Of course,
Otherwise,
I was going to say,
anyone
Michael,
can fight.
if Naya Inoue fought Canelo, you wouldn't expect him to win, would you?
Not because of weight.
Oh, come on, man. Come
No,
on.
I would not because of
So you
weight.
just think Canelo's better than Inoue, and that's why he beat him. Nothing to do with the size of him.
That's why if Canelo was.
Let me
gonna
ask you, Michael. Do you think in your the highlight of your career, do you think you could have beat Manny Pacquiao?
At the highlight when I was my heaviest?
Yes.
Could I have beat him?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, but not because I'm bigger. I would not because
you
I
have
was
beat
bigger.
Larry
I wouldn't it's still going to hurt me when he punches me, so I'd still have to do something. Maybe because of my range.
Because what we're talking about, what you've got to look at, we're not talking about weight as in an apple and an orange. We're talking about weight, and part of that weight is height goes bigger, reach goes bigger, advantages get changed. So it's not the weight; it's the actual structure of a super middleweight against a welterweight. The advantages are arm length, height, reach, power, strength.
So Gary, you're a professional boxer. You spar with all types.
It's what comes with the weight. It's what becomes the issue.
I'm sure you've sparred light heavyweights and heavyweights, and I'm sure you've thumped them, right?
Yeah, but I'm not sure. Like, I'll give you an example. Eubanks and me, I would put my life, I'd put my father's life, I'd beat Eubanks 1,000 out of 1,000 over 3 rounds. I wouldn't put my house, I'd beat him over 12 rounds because the weight will affect me, and he will start to impose himself because he's strong.
But boxing isn't that kind of sport. Boxing is about reflexes, and it's a striking sport. If you're talking about wrestling, I would say yes, because having to move a human body like that is a different type of strength altogether.
Okay, can you Cesar Chavez, right?
Who that?
Chavez, okay? Little guy, right? Mm-hmm. Would Larry Holmes could beat him? Or do you think Frank Bruno could beat him?
I think if they got into the ring, right? No, I'm not about fight. Like, let's say they got in and they were over in England. Let's get in there and spar. And you put Chavez in the ring with Frank Bruno. I think Chavez wouldn't disappoint you.
Not sparring, he wouldn't do, but it's different in a fight, as you know. I used to have this thing when I was a teenager. I used to imagine to myself, I think Sugar Leonard could still beat Frank Bruno because I thought the class gap was that huge and thermonuclear. But you couldn't have beat Larry Holmes.
Regularly get in the ring with light heavyweights and heavyweights and spar with them. And James Toney did the same thing.
But sparring is, sparring. I mean, sparring is rough, and sparring you get hit, but it's not the same as a fight under the lights.
Well, and why is it not the same as the fight? Let me ask
because the ethos is different. The pressure's not there, the crowd's not there, and the bases aren't loaded. When you're sparring, you're there for a variety of reasons, to hone your craft and to get fit, to get fight ready, to get conditioned. You're not there to beat the other guy.
And ultimately, you haven't honed yourself over months preparing for a fighter. That's what you do. That's the biggest difference right there. It's the fact that you're training for 3 months with one specific guy, and your intent is to beat that guy. But sparring is every bit as rough and hard and challenging as a fight would be. You have to take the same type of punch. You have to deal with the same kind of like weight differences or whatever you want to call it, reflex, reach, height, all of that kind of stuff. The only difference is you're training specifically for a certain type of fighter, and you hone your abilities over those 3 months in order to be able to beat him. But other than that, there's not really a big difference between a fight. Well, except, I mean, yeah, it means something. You're getting paid for it. You're on TV and people are looking at you and there are perceptions, and a lot of people step their game up when you have a perception that's going to be, you're defending your title, your life is on the line, you execute faster, things like that. But I certainly don't believe that, would Sugar Ray beat Bruno? Yes, I'm sure he would. His skills are that marketable. Duran, James Toney, Tommy Hearns, all these guys, they spar heavyweights and it isn't an issue.
Well, Prince Nassim Hamed said he used to spar heavyweights and cruiserweights and stuff, but he wouldn't have fought them, would he? But he wouldn't have fought them.
But, come on, guys. There's weight class for a reason,
3 months to prepare for him.
Yeah.
They would have
Well,
three
Weight classes
classes
for reasons, right? I mean, come on, I think it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
You
it's it. I mean,
should
come on.
get in with a middleweight and beat him or super middleweight.
Well,
Michael lives on planet Larger Day.
But Ben, listen, this is how guys you talk about Harry Greb and you talk about a lot of other fighters that come up from lightweight, lighter weight divisions and continue and dominate heavier weight divisions or beat heavyweight champions.
But they don't stay at their original weight.
Well, listen, Harry Greb didn't weigh 156 and bulk up to like 175 to fight whoever was a heavyweight or
But
a
when
light
Sugar Ray
heavyweight.
Robinson fought Joey Maxim in 1952, and then he lost because they said it was very hot and he got heat exhaustion effectively. But it was the extra weight which ultimately fucked him because he came in at 157 against a guy who's a big, strong, 175 pounds at a weigh-in.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen the fight. I don't know if he was fighting, if his opponent, if the guy was really fighting a pressure.
He was beating the guy till the strength and the heat caught up with him, the natural strength, and
Yeah,
Look.
I mean, I think on Sugar Ray's part, I mean, the heat, exhaustion, that kind of thing that was taken out of his body was something that hadn't been done before because I don't remember looking at highlights of that fight and thinking, the kid was doing
I
anything.
think it's a crazy conversation. Khabib is the best UFC fighter in the world for me. I love him. He couldn't fight John Jones. It's like it's up to here on him.
But it's different. There's kicks.
I know it's different, but it's not.
Boxing is a pure striking sport.
Unless you can't fight a guy
like
8 feet advantage, who's 50 pounds heavier than you. You have a chance because you don't have a chance.
Fury against a welterweight or a middleweight, I would say, yeah, of course not, because
but why? So at some point,
Fury lays not because of his height, because of his weight. He lays his by his style. He lays his body on you. He mauls you. He pulls you. You're going to be tired by the time you get a chance.
Who's the better fighter, in your opinion, Sugar Ray Leonard or Tyson Fury?
Sugar Ray Leonard.
So do you think you would?
You really think that?
Would you put your money on Leonard would beat Fury?
I think Leonard is a better
over
fighter.
12 rounds.
But I'm saying
would you put your money on Leonard beats Fury over 12 rounds?
Oh, no, because I know Fury's just going to lay all over him.
Well, there you go.
But like him in clinching and laying on him and using his body weight and just particularly trying to tire him out.
We know Sugar Ray's light years better than him. We know that. We both understand that.
He's my favorite fighter.
It's not a matter of being better. I'm just saying that's how you can use your weight as an advantage. That's the only thing, laying on your opponent and tire him out. Do I think if you said
extra power, you don't think
if you said there was no striking allowed, no hugging allowed, no laying on your opponent, and you were to say Tyson versus Tyson Fury versus.
You ever seen them old jokes when a guy puts his hand out like this?
I'm putting my money on Sugar Ray Leonard.
Yeah.
Come on.
No,
listen, guys.
Michael, I love you, but you're delusional.
Sugar Ray Leonard is a connoisseur
of the sport. But you couldn't put him in.
It's incredible.
There's 20 average heavyweights with reading. And I'm more of a Leonard fan than you are, trust me.
No.
It's not big enough. It's just too small.
But listen,
it's too small.
Oh,
listen,
okay,
guys.
There was that height difference, but you know what? If you were asking me about a striking contest between Sugar Ray Leonard and Tyson Fury, Tommy Hearns and Tyson Fury, I would go with Tyson with Tommy Hearns.
Interestingly, you see what Tommy Hearns did to Dennis Andrews. That's probably one of the greatest expositions of your point, guys. I want to try and bring us back because we're getting close to an hour. I know Sai, who's going to give us a good close if he's still around, can't stay much longer than an hour. Interestingly, Terry O'Donoghue, we haven't taken any comments this week, by the way, says that Ben's opponent last night was boxing at 140 not so long ago, so he's not that big. You know what's interesting? I actually heard the commentators on DAZN say he started at 108 pounds. He actually started as a flyweight.
6'1", yeah.
God knows what age he turned pro at, Gary, but he must be one of them Mexicans who turned pro at 13.
16, I think.
He started at flyweight, so he obviously had a growth spurt. Guys, you know what? We have some exciting weeks coming up because
anything next week, Ben?
Next week is Canelo versus Charlo, but Sugar and Silk and Stretch coming at you. Where will it be coming at you from, Silk? Tell them.
Atlantic City.
And we won't need 3 different screens, will we?
No, we won't. We're going to meet for the first time to shake hands.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to that. Maybe we can get in the gym and do a bit of mitt work, both sides as well.
We get that too.
Silk and Sugar on the mitts, right?
Let's do it. Yeah, it'll be a good time. Sorry you're not going to be there, Gary. It would be great to have you.
It would.
No, I'm still in Europe. You never know. I mean, I have it's in 1 week's time exactly, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's next
think
Friday we're going to be there, and
Yeah.
all you guys are going to be down there. I remember
But Camelo Charlo's on the Saturday.
Mark
I won't be
Brewer.
there, but I hope you fly the flag for me, okay? I'll see you on the podcast.
Okay. Well, listen,
Who's your
guys.
money on? A quick
Say
one. Who
Canelo.
you backing?
Canelo.
Yeah, I mean, I think this kid's going to put up a fight. I do. Are we choosing this? Are we making this?
No, not yet. Let's do that next week, and we'll do it with Gary. We'll still do a show with Gary next week, but we'll be in
I'll
AC,
have to
and he'll be in.
meditate on this one.
Wait, no. I think
1-0. I'm not losing this.
I should be all right this time.
We're all on the same level of knowledge right now. So who are you?
No,
picking?
I'm 1-0. I'm 1-0. You're 1-1, and he's. What are you, Ben?
0-2. He's 0-2.
1-2, 1-1, 1-0. It's okay.
No. He's no. Ben is 0-2.
Yeah.
And you're 1-1.
I'm 1-1, and
And
you're
I'm
1-0.
100% right so far. So
Yeah,
please
but
give
the
me a
thing
little
is,
respect.
you only
Thank
have
you,
one
boys.
choice. Yeah, you'll catch up. Don't worry.
Only reason I'm 0-2 is because I got matched outside of my weight division. Listen, guys, we hope you've enjoyed this. Sorry that we didn't really pay attention to the comments this week. We're glad you're watching it on YouTube. You can no longer watch us on Facebook. This is a unique boxing podcast brought to you exclusive by Ace Podcast Nation. I've been Ben Doughty. Delighted to be joined by Michael Olajide and Gary Stretch.
Atlantic
Join us
City.
next week, and we'll do it again. Peace.
Peace.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Okay.